Okay. I'm just nervous about having this opinion, but who cares? You know, there's 3 months till the next Apple keynote. Gotta tick off someone. Long ago on this channel, I talked about how I didn't think VR was the future. It's cool, it's fun, it's gonna stay here forever, but it's not going to revolutionize the industries like everyone says it will. It's not the next big thing. Of course, as you already are right now, everyone got very angry and upset about that, saying I was an idiot and that I would discredit anything that wasn't made by Apple, which there's some truth to, yeah. But I came to an agreement since then about virtual reality. Obviously, I didn't see the future in it and everybody else did, so I said I won't talk about it until I've actually tried it. So we've waited a long time and I've been very silent in this field, and I've tried to find people out there with VR headsets, and you know, that's kind of the tricky thing. There's not a lot of people with VR headsets. I can't really find anyone willing to buy it quite yet. There's people wanting to buy it, but no one actually has it. Isn't that part of the problem already? The HTC Vive came out in April last year, and the Oculus before that even. And yes, I know lots of people have bought them, lots of people are using them now, but not quite to the same extent as other new revolutionary products. I know people who bought the Amazon Echo. Like, I could meet up and talk to that person about it. And I know people who bought the new Note 7, and I can see people with the Google Pixel out there, but with VR, it's not a mobile product, it's stationary, so it's very hard to tell how many people really have them. I can tell you none of my friends on Steam are playing any VR games, so that was the first indicator. And of all the people I've talked to on YouTube, especially you guys in the comment sections, I've never ran into someone who says this is what the Rift or the Vive is like. They've read what others have said about it, but not a lot of people in the comments actually own them. And keep in mind, back when we were talking about it, this channel was significantly smaller, so if there's some of you out there who own it now, great, let's talk about it. I'm just saying it's not in everyone's hands like other industries have been. I have several friends who own gaming PCs, one of which is one that I used to have. I sold it to him because I just wasn't using it, and they have high-end gaming PCs. They are not low-budget versions, and yet none of them can support the VR headsets, either one of them. So you're already kind of narrowing who can buy the VR headsets because it requires such a precise and high-powered gaming PC that not a lot of people out there have, as well as setting you back $800 just for the equipment, not counting the games you have to buy for it. So while I admit that it is better to review a product once you've had it for a while, not just after one first impression, I can't really review VR because I don't have that kind of money to spend, and I don't even know anybody who has that money that they're willing to spend. So at the front end of VR, we're kind of already hitting a problem. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of you out there, probably the majority of you out there watching this, that love VR. You disagree with me, you think it's everything in the future, and you want one, but the only reason you don't have one is probably financial reasons. But let me be more fair, okay? Any new technology is expensive at first, and over time it gets cheaper. In time, it will become more affordable, I hope. If they can figure out a way to make 2 joysticks, a goggle headset, high-powered gaming PC, and motion capture devices, if they can make all those affordable in the future, they will. Let's just for a second pretend money is not a problem. Anyone now can afford the VR headsets. They're something crazy cheap, like $100, $200 for the same content. The Vive and Oculus, price dock, $200. Now let's talk VR. They can play VR games at home. That's cool, right? How cool are VR games? They're pretty innovative. They've never existed before. It's a whole new way to interact with this virtual system that we used to just look at a monitor for. You can move your head around in virtual reality like you're really there, and you can move your arms around like your arms are really there, and then you can move around that world as long as it's at the 8 feet about. Is it even 8 feet? You can move around as you normally would if you were in a 8-foot box. This brings me to my next issue, which will take quite a bit of engineering to fix. VR on the surface opens more doors for what gaming can be, right? This is the peak of interactive gaming. But the more I think about games we like to play, VR really closes more doors than it opens. Third-person games are still pretty popular, and that kind of defeats the point of having a headset because everything VR has to be first-person. First-person is, of course, very popular as well, but in all first-person games, we have a few traits that don't translate over to VR. There's a running trait in all first-person games that I've noticed that is kind of hard to phase out. It's called walking. In most first-person games, you are running around a location or exploring a world. You are ducking behind cover. You are sprinting, sneaking on all fours. These things are near impossible in VR because every VR game has to limit you to an 8-foot box. So yes, let me clarify. VR is helpful for certain games. I think it's primarily good for cockpit games. When you're either flying a spacecraft, an aircraft, or driving a race car, then at least it makes sense that you'd be sitting and you're exploring new things. You don't have to be using your legs. However, to recreate the actual VR experience of a race car or a spacecraft, keep in mind if you're wearing that headset, you're not going to be able to see your controls. And if it's a fairly realistic game, a spacecraft, a race car, an aircraft is not going to have a keyboard and mouse sitting in front of you. You're going to have, you know, a joystick, a throttle. So to make that VR experience make sense, you're going to have to buy not really those VR mandibles, but a dedicated joystick and throttle for those specific games, which people do, I get that, but those can range from anywhere to $80 to over $200. I can't tell you how to spend your money. If you're willing to spend that much on gameplay, you're welcome to do so, but I think this just draws the line between between what is the future and what is cool toys that rich people get to play with. As in the distant future, if someone asks us, are you going to be able to go to Mars in the future? My answer would be yes, but again, it's not gonna be something anyone can do. You know, Elon Musk is promising we can send people to Mars by 2030, but can anyone do it? No. But at the same time, VR cockpit experiences have already existed in the past anyway. So instead of making it kind of a consumer-friendly future, it's more of a $80,000 experience that Boeing created that is now a $10,000 experience for consumers. Not really part of the mainstream. I think new innovations need to help the task we need done get done better, not change the task itself. In this case, the task is usually gaming. If we take a look at what games are being played the most right now, we've got League of Legends, which isn't really VR playable. Hearthstone, Overwatch, which remember Overwatch, first person, you're running around, you're sprinting, you're jumping, you're chasing things. Dota 2, World of Warcraft, CSGO, I think you get the point. The biggest and most popular games people are playing right now are not really suitable for VR. Now, some people out there are saying that you can make these circular treadmills that let you run in any direction while you're wearing the VR headset, and they've made prototypes of this before, but even if you got down that running thing, now you can't crouch, now you can't sneak, now you can't jump. So that's a cool little $8,000 accessory you want for your games. That doesn't even give you the same options that a regular keyboard and mouse does. What I'm trying to say is VR in terms of gaming, which don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not an expert in, it's not a realm of infinite possibility. It pushes the limits of gaming backwards to an 8-foot box, which of course right now we're seeing what's possible with that, as all the game developers out there are developing games that can work in that environment. I think they're all going to quickly realize how limited it is and how quickly we're going to run out of ideas. Not a whole lot of options for gameplay. Now, all those are arguments I can make against VR without currently owning the headset. I don't need to have one to understand these things about VR. Now, in terms of actual performance, if I did have one, I don't want to make too many assumptions here because I've only used an HTC Vive once. It was at a Windows store in Seattle. I played with it for a little while. It wasn't a long-term experience, and I used an Oculus Rift once at a science fair. So again, I haven't had long-term experience with VR headsets. But I do remember being disappointed in the fact that one, I can still see the pixels, so the resolution quality was not high enough to be reality-like. And number two, the visuals the VR headsets provide do not cover your peripherals. Meaning at least when I was wearing them, it didn't really feel like I was transported into a new world. It felt like I was looking at a 360 video wearing giant swimming goggles strapped onto my face. I couldn't forget that that was happening. So I can't really recommend using them for long periods of time. After prolonged use with Samsung VR, which I reviewed in the past, my eyes got watery very quickly because these computers are quite literally tricking your eyes. And that's hard on them because your eyes are very good at telling what's reality. I don't think we're anywhere near tricking them about that. And it also made parts of my head sore because you've got some weight on you. In terms of the mobile VRs and Google Daydream or Samsung VR, using these headsets in public is going to create this awkwardness factor that I don't think VR developers are considering, the social aspect. You are literally blindfolded. You cannot see. That's not something you want to do in public. Part of the appeal to watching someone try VR for the first time is watching how stupid they look in it. Because they're blindfolded and they're running around the room with these things in their hands. Yeah, you look stupid wearing it. As in, it's not really going to be something people are comfortable with doing on the go. Giant goggles, 4 cables coming off those goggles, 2 weird controllers that they're swinging around like there's some kid at a birthday party trying to defeat a piñata, except like they're in the movie Tron. That's the best analogy I got. I'm just saying the social aspect of VR is not really being considered. People are not going to be comfortable with using VR on the go. They'll be made fun of, they'll be abused, and VR really is going to be okay with people if they're just at home and they're also alone. You're not going to be wanting to play with VR while having a conversation with someone. Listen, I know all of you out there disagree with me. I'm fine with that. These are just opinions. But I also promise as a tech channel to be honest with all of you. When I'm looking at what tech will be part of our daily future, I look at what it adds to our lives and what doors it opens. And of course, all new technology closes some doors. Just look at the MacBook Pro. It causes some new annoyances, yes. But with VR, I acknowledge the excitement behind it. I understand why we're all pumped because of course it's new technology we haven't really seen before. It's cool. But long term, I think the potential for it is incredibly low. And we're going to very quickly realize in these next coming years that the possibilities of VR are incredibly short, not infinite. Now remember, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to fade away. It will always continue to improve, and I think it'll have a big step forward when we can finally make the VR headsets wireless, which will probably cost even more money, but we'll get there. Believe me, whenever I see one, I want to try one out, and it's never going to completely die, but it's never going to become the mainstream. It's not going to take over any kind of market. It's just going to be a kind of nice little niche, kind of like Xbox Kinect games. They're neat, they're always there, but not infinite. And guys, at the end of the day, remember, I didn't kill anyone, I don't hate anybody, it's just my personal opinion, and you can have yours. We can have different opinions, this is fine. Those are just my thoughts on the matter of VR. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.